Good morning, guys. For 6th semester BBA, I am taking up company law subject to you students, and I am welcoming you all to the first session of company law. Let's start from a proverb. It's a well-known proverb that two heads are better than one. In this relation, partnership firms and joint stock companies came into existence. The main reason behind the emergence of these two categories of units, business units, is to take advantage of different heads, means collective hands, to achieve a common goal. People from all the ladders, all the layers collectively participate in achieving the mentioned goal of the enterprise. Here, with reference to company law, to say it is a part of English law, it is adopted from English law and a branch of commercial law. Here there are so many subsidiaries to commercial law, like patent law, trademark law, copyright law, and company law too. Company law is also one among them. See, before stepping into the aspect of company law, we have to understand the meaning of company. What actually the meaning of company? So let's move on to the topic of different aspects we are going to study in this particular session. See, the aspects are meaning of a company, definition of a company, and applicability of company law, and also features we are going to study. Before lifting up the matter of company law, I am touching the aspect of meaning of company. Okay, let's see what's the meaning of company in general sense. First, let's discuss in general sense. A group of individuals having common interest in them group together and collectively establish a unit, a business unit, is called a company, and they must get it incorporated under the provisions of Companies Act. This is in the general sense, means a group of persons or a group of individuals having common interest in them establish or incorporate an institution is called a company. But in particular, from legal sense, in the words of law, to describe the meaning of company as any institution incorporated under the provisions of Companies Act of 2013 or under any of the previous Companies Acts, like Companies Act of 1956 or any of the other Companies Acts. So what happens here, one thing I want to bring to your notice that company law originated in the year 1956 and undergone a series of amendments necessary. Some of the clauses are eliminated, unused clauses are eliminated, and some of the clauses, contemporary clauses, are added to the law. So this is addition and elimination called amendments. So it has undergone a series of amendments, and now to define the meaning of company as any incorporation incorporated under the provisions of Companies Act of 2013 or under any of the previous Companies Acts is called a company. In examination, you can produce the same answer as definition for the company. Okay, let's move on to the definition. See, section 2 subsection 20 of Companies Act of 2013 has defined a company as a company formed and registered under the Companies Act of 2013 or under any of the previous Companies Acts. You can produce the same definition in examination too, and it is very clear for you, it is crystal clear for you that a company which is registered, which has incorporated under the provisions, under the clauses of Companies Act of 2013. Needless to explain it more. And moving on to the next one is applicability. Here, for what are the laid hands of company law? What are the substitutes of company law, what we can say, or what are the entities for which company law is applied, or what are the aspects a company law touches is called applicability of company law. What are the entities, the activities of which company law is to be observed. So before stepping into this applicability aspect, let me give you the meaning of company law. A set of rules, a set of codes of conduct which governs, which monitors, which controls, which keeps a bird's eye view on the activities of corporations is called company law. A company cannot perform freely the business transactions, the contracts it can enter into. A company is not at all permitted to conduct business, to enter into contracts, to sue on third parties, or to perform any of the activities in its will and wish. It has to observe, it has to perform within the limits of law. It has to, there is a purview for the activities to be performed by a corporation. So a set of conduct, a set of rules, a set of regulations which hinder a company, which stop a company, which limits a company from performing, from outreaching the acts, which control the company's acts is called a company law. In simple words, company law is a set of rules and regulations which monitor the company's activities. Of course, a business which keenly observes the clauses of company law while performing business. All the activities must be within the limit of company law clauses. Here, first applicability is companies registered under Companies Act. Needless to explain, a company law is applied for those companies which have registered under Companies Act. Companies registered under any of the previous Companies Acts, as I said just now, any of the previous Companies Acts other than Companies Act of 2013, previous to the Companies Act of 2013. Next, foreign companies. Companies which are established in foreign countries, having branches in India, called foreign companies. Here, while performing, of course, about foreign companies and government companies you are going to study in detail in the coming sessions, and now I am just touching these two aspects, okay? See, foreign companies having branches in India must have a minimum knowledge of prevailing company law clauses of India. They can't perform the activities according to the law of foreign country, mother country. Say for example, if a company of Japan having branches in India must observe, must perform business considering the regulations, rules stated therein Indian company law, not the law stated by Japan. So, company law also applies to the subsidiaries of foreign companies which are performing business operations in India. And government companies. The meaning of government company is to say as a government company is a company where the government, either state government or central government, owns more than 50% stake, minimum 51% stake. Means out of total shares, minimum 51% of the shares must be rested in the hands of government. So such companies are also coming under the purview of company law. Next, we are moving on to the characteristics of joint stock companies. See, initially I have given you the meaning of companies, but After discussing the characteristics of joint stock companies, it will be crystal clear for you what a company is. All the features collectively bring you the meaning of company. First one, voluntary association. Here, as I said just now, here individuals who are having common interest in them group together and form an association, form a company, which must be registered under the provisions of Companies Act. Therefore, here it is a voluntary association. In the sense, nobody from outside should compel a person to form a company. Even after establishment of company, the persons called promoters, persons who establish a company are called promoters. So after the and they become the member of the company too. After the establishment of a company, these promoters or the members will not be compelled to move out of the company, to cancel their membership. So third party should not have any control over getting membership or discharging membership of the company. Therefore, here it is clear for you. I want to make you clear that voluntary association explains you that the persons having common interest to establish a company, to conduct a business, persons having the same set of mind to establish a business, conduct a business, will form a company called voluntary association. And second one, incorporated association. Here, as I said initially, any of the incorporations, any of the corporations, any of the joint stock companies, to get the name of company, they have to incorporate it under the provisions of any of the Companies Acts. Means it must get registered with the registrar of companies. Next one, specific object. All the people without any object won't come together and start a business. Not only just for the meaning of just for the purpose of getting profit they start a business. Instead, there will be a common goal. There will be a goal. There will be a precise goal. There will be a precise objective. There will be a precise vision for which the business is started up. So all the companies will be incorporated with a specific objective. Next one, artificial person created by law. Here, company enjoys with all the privileges what a man enjoys. It is also considered a citizen in the eyes of law. Means citizenship will not be issued, rather it enjoys all other privileges like entering into a contract, cancelling the contracts, signing the agreements, entering into agreements, and purchasing fixed assets, and mergers, acquisitions, and joining hands with the other institutions to perform business. So all these strategic activities can be done by a company. That's why it is an artificial person created by law. In a sense, here it does not have any physical existence. It can't breathe, it can't have any physical activities like what a man does. Even it is considered as a person in the eyes of law, but in the eyes of law only it has to pay the tax. Of course, it has to pay the tax. Therefore, here in the eyes of law, a company is an artificial person, not a physical person. In the sense, natural existence will not be there for a company. Even it is a person, it is considered as a person. Next one, not a citizen. Here, for an Indian company, citizenship will not be available. Just for the purpose that the company is established in India, citizenship will not be issued to him. Issued to it. A person who is living in a particular country is eligible to get the citizenship, but for a company it is not. Even if it is an artificial person created by law, in the eyes of law it is treated as a person. enjoys all the privileges similar to a person, but it can't enjoy the citizenship. See, one more thing I want to bring to your notice, that case laws will be asked in the examination. Unless it is specifically mentioned to elaborate the case laws, you just mention as what I have mentioned in front of this point. See, in the examination, if you are asked to write the characteristics of joint stock companies, you will be write like, first one, voluntary association, and you give the explanation. Incorporated association, you give the explanation. A specific object, you give the explanation. And in fifth point, not a citizen, for that also you give the explanation. And you have to mention the case. Okay, you have to mention the case, like State Trading Corporation of India versus Commercial Tax Officer. If you are asked to elaborate the case, in next session I am going to tell the story of this case. Why this case is for company is not a citizen. Okay, some event had happened and that event is stated here. Event went to the court and some judgment came out on this case. So in front of the, for this point you have to mention the case. Okay, next one, separate legal entity. Always a company has a separate legal entity, in the sense after the establishment of it, members are different and company will be different. Members of the company are permitted to bring fixed assets, cash or any valuables into the company, and not permitted to take it back, saying that those valuables are brought by me and belonging to me. Once it gets registered, once a company gets incorporated, it gets a separate legal existence. It gets a separate, it will be treated as an artificial person. So it gets a separate privilege of a person, an entity. In this respect, financial statements like profit and loss account and balance sheet are prepared to show the financial soundness of it to the stakeholders. In none of the financial statements, financial status of promoters, either promoters or the members of the company is stated. Only the financial status of a company is stated. What it indicates? It indicates that after its incorporation, company gets a separate existence, separate privilege of company, so-called company, and it will be different from its members. And one case law is stated for this, that is Solomon versus Solomon and Company Limited. I will elaborate the case in next session. Moving on to the next point, that is separate property. Here, like a human being, company is also permitted to purchase fixed assets, to sell fixed assets, or to purchase another company, to enjoy assets, or to enjoy movable and immovable properties. Company can deal with the fixed assets and immovable properties or any of the assets or anything it can do. It can enjoy with anything, but all the accounts must be maintained separately. In the sense, company's properties are different. Let me give one fine example for this. Assume that A, B, C and D are the four parties collectively start or incorporate a company. The name of the company is ABC Limited. Okay, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C and Mr. D start a company. After the incorporation of ABC Limited, ABC Limited will maintain a separate set of documents, and Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C and Mr. D are different. Mr. A brings furniture, Mr. B brings laptop, Mr. C brings books, and Mr. D brings some lands or land and building to the company. Even if these four members introduce fixed assets to the company, those fixed assets after reaching to the company, it will be treated as the property of a company, not the property of individuals. So all these fixed assets will enter into the books of accounts of the company. Therefore here the company is permitted to enjoy these books, laptop, land and buildings and furnitures given by all four members. If the parties want to withdraw these fixed assets from the company, those must be clearly mentioned in books of accounts. And next one, perpetual succession. See, very interesting feature and special feature of joint stock companies is perpetual succession. Means by the end of a person who is decorating a particular position, the business will never come to an end. Business will never see an end. Business will never sink. Let me give one example. I want to illustrate this particular point as Mr. X is decorating the position of managing director and Mr. Y is decorating the position of general manager. Now, if Mr. X dies or will be relieved from the job or retrenched from the job or retires from the job or something caught by the eyes of law or imprisoned or in death or in any of the cases, in any of the mentioned cases, if X will be relieved from the place, be relieved from the designation, the company will never sink. Instead, the previous general manager, the person behind him, Mr. Y, the general manager, will come and decorate the position of managing director. Therefore, here, just by the death of a person or by the relieving of a person from the duty or by the retirement of a person from the duty or imprisonment of a person, okay, or what we can say, insane of a person or in death of a person or in any of the cases, if one person fails to discharge his duties and fails to continue in the same position in the organization will never stop its activities, and if he goes, another person who is standing behind him will come and decorate the position. Therefore, it has perpetual succession, in the sense if one person goes, another person will come and sit in the place. If that person retires, another person come and sits in that particular place. This is called perpetual succession. Common sale. A company also introduces lots and lots of letters from the company, circulates lot and lot of letters and enters into different kinds of contracts. It circulates letters to different parties in different respects, in different situations. How one can come to know that those letters, just by having a glance over the letters, how one can come to know that those letters are originated from that particular company? It is possible by having a common seal. Of course, what stands as an evidence for the contracts entered into this common seal? In a sense, which adds value to the document, that common seal. In a sense, a company which releases letters in different respects, which enters into contract producing so many documents, for all these it uses a common seal. Whatever the documents originated from the company, all will have a common seal of the company. So by that it is possible for third parties to come to know that those documents are originated from the company itself. But contemporarily this common seal is not made mandatory by Companies Acts. Next one, transferability of shares. Of course, Section 44 of Companies Act of 2013 stated this. Shares of public limited companies are freely transferable, freely movable from one hand to another hand, but shares of private limited companies are not freely transferable. See, while incorporating a company, we come up with the two main documents, Memorandum of Association and Articles of Association. If Articles of Association provides for free transfer of shares from one hand to another hand, it will be freely movable between hands. If it is not permitted in Articles of Association, then free transfer will not be there. Therefore, here for public limited company, shares are freely movable. For a private limited company, restrictions are there. Last one, membership. See, total number of members permitted for a public limited company is, maximum number of members is unlimited. For a private company is 200 as of now. It keeps on revising over time, okay? And minimum number of members for a public limited company is 7 and for a private limited company is 2 as per Companies Act. Members are the persons who purchase the shares of the company, equity shares of the company. They become the permanent members until they hold equity shares. These collectively give you the meaning of company. I hope you are clear with the meaning, definition, applicability and all the features. Thank you.